So, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Breakfast with Mike. And this week we're talking about inventory, or more importantly, the lack of inventory. You know, I hear students telling me this all the time. There's just not enough stuff out there. There's not enough homes out there. There's not enough whatever. There's not enough qualified people out there. And I don't agree. I think there's plenty of inventory. And I'm going to prove it to you. When we talk about a lack of inventory, we're talking about a lack of actual homes on the market. Well, in order for there to be more homes on the market, there have to be more homes that could be on the market. This week, one of the things I did with students was I took the number of total households. I started by doing this in the country. I went, what were the total number of closings in the country? And it was about 5 million or so. And you can Google this, and there are numbers. I mean, they'll vary a little bit, but you'll see where I'm going with this. Then I Googled the number of households in the US, and it was like 140 some odd million. So I said, wait a minute, 5 million sales, 140 possibilities, 140 million possibilities. That means like 4 or 5% of the possible homes that could have sold actually did sell last year. And of course, when you do that, some people will go, well, my state's different. So I started going state by state. Anybody who I talked to, I said, well, let's do this. Let's see if we can go to Google and find out what those numbers are. And you know what? State by state, it was about the same. I think New Jersey was like 3%. Connecticut was like 4.5%. The point is this all starts with an awareness. Okay? All starts with an awareness. And here's the awareness that I hope you just got out of what we've been talking about. There are plenty of homes that could be listed. Plenty. Maybe it's not a lack of inventory. Maybe it's a lack of effort. Maybe we're mailing it in. I know plenty of people that they just sit back and wait for business to come to them. And when the market's good, they do fine. And when the market's not, they don't. And then, of course, what do? They blame the market. Here, let's be conservative. More than 90% of the homes in the US did not sell last year. That's a pretty target-rich environment, don't you think? When you look at 90% didn't sell. There's plenty of homes out there that could be on the market. But that takes me to the next part of this, okay? Do people like to sell? No, I don't think most people like to sell at all. They might want to move, but I don't think that they look to sell. Okay? There could be reasons why they're going to move. And that's where we've got to go. We've got to look at it and say, if 90% of the homes in any given working area didn't sell last year, why is that? Well, some of them are just happy where they are, and that's fine. But what if there were some people that, under the right circumstances, they would move? Well, are you going to wait for them to call you, or are you going to go find them? By the way, I know the answer to that question. For most people, they're going to wait. And then they'll blame the market when things don't happen. And I know some of you will sit there and you'll say, well, what am I supposed to do? If they don't contact me, how am I supposed to know Well, that's what you get the big bucks for, is to be able to figure out who might and who might not. I was with one student this week, and I gave him the example that I knew best, and that was Karen and I. We weren't thinking about moving at all. We were very happy where we were. But one of the things that you don't expect changed. And that was me. All of a sudden, I started having a lot of trouble with my hip. And stairs were not fun. And so, unbeknownst to me, Karen somehow got me fixing up everything around the house. And then when it was done, she says, I think we ought to sell it. I was like, what? I just did all this work, you know? But she was kind of setting me up a little bit. And she wanted us to go find a ranch so that I didn't have to do all these steps. And I didn't think about it back then. I didn't think about it for even a while afterwards. But I was on the phone with somebody this past week, and I did think about it. All of a sudden, there was a reason for us to make a move. By the way, none of you contacted me about it. Well, I got people here that live in Connecticut, but nobody contacted me. Nobody prompted me. We just made the decision, and of course, then we had to find a place, that didn't have steps. That wasn't easy to do, as you know. All of you know that right now because you're doing this. But eventually, we found some and walked into one and said, this is it, bought it, sold ours in a heartbeat. Never even thinking about you at the time. I was not thinking about you. I'll be honest, I wasn't. But this past week, talking with students, I realized something. All we talk about is this lack of inventory. You hear that all the time. Every so-called expert that writes an article or does a podcast or whatever, that's what they talk about, lack of inventory. Let's get to the root cause of the lack of inventory, lack of effort on the part of the agents. How many agents are actually prospecting to find people like me who needed to move? Well, where do you find them? That's what you get the big bucks for. But we can talk about a few places that I can pretty much guarantee you're not looking. There are a number of places, even in your own area, that you drive by and you see people struggling. When did you ever ask them, what if we could find you a ranch where you don't have to take all those steps anymore? By the way, arthritis is one of the fastest growing problems we have with people of a certain age. I won't say the elderly anymore. I gave saying that up. But it is one of the biggest issues out there. So what we went through is not unusual. What's unusual is, since you're all so young, you don't think about that. Just going up 3-4 steps for some people can be extremely painful. Why don't you reach out and help them? I've talked for a long time about finding the owners of properties outside of your state. We call them out-of-state owners just for that reason. I was doing a class a couple of weeks ago, and I gave this out. I said, right now, this time of year, we're getting to the point where colleges are going to start graduating. And some people, some smart investors, when their son or daughter was going to college, rather than pay room and board, they went and bought a property around the college, rented out the other rooms, and ended up, instead of paying room and board, turning a profit, especially now that properties are worth more than they were. So I gave that out in a class a couple of weeks ago, and I got a text message during the week saying, took your advice, started looking, ended up talking to somebody in the admissions department. Not only did we find one of the sellers that was looking to move, we found somebody that was moving in. She did double-sided deal on something she'd never even thought about before. Now, I know that I got my friends here from New Jersey. You got Rowan College that's down that way. I'm sure you have others. Connecticut, we got, oh my God, all over the place, right? Why aren't we looking? Well, how do we find that out? Instead of asking the questions that you should be answering yourself, because you should be looking at this saying, I'm tired of waiting. Where can I go find business? And this would have been another method. By the way, if you go down to most admissions, you can find that out. You could also go down to the local towns and find people who live out of state that are living around the colleges. Most colleges have multifamily homes and such that sometimes the colleges own them, but there are also others that are owned by individuals. If we start with that awareness that 90% of the homes that are available in the country didn't sell, then the next logical step is, why would they sell? What reason would there be for them to sell? Okay. One might be medical. Some people want to get closer to or further away from relatives. There's that possibility. There's people constantly that their family is growing and they need to sell and move into something bigger. Oh, wait, flip side. Their family is now out on their own, and all of a sudden some people are realizing their house is way too big for them. They just don't need that anymore. My point is, there are a lot of possibilities. Once the awareness hits you that they're out there, 90% of the current homes in virtually every area that I checked, it was more like 95, 96%. But even if we say 90% didn't sell last year. What possible reasons? And think about all the years you've been doing this, and why do people normally buy or sell? There are all kinds of studies out there. Why are people moving? Well, the easy ones, moving up, moving down, getting closer to work, farther away from the in-laws. Those are standard. Medical, to me, that's a new one. It's really not new, just might be new to you. Working around colleges. Guarantee you there's some people out there right now that are going to put their property on the market. I remember talking to one administration in one of the colleges local here, and they said a lot of times they just go right to the people that are coming in, and they start sending a message out. And we also have some properties that are local to the college that we could rent out. That triggers somebody to think, well, why don't I just go buy one? Why don't we think of things like that? Well, maybe it's not what you would have done. But once you start getting outside the box and stop thinking about everything as being the way it's always been done. One of the things that makes top producers is they get outside the box. They start thinking about things from a different angle. The difference between top producers and wannabe top producers. The wannabe top producers will resort to advertising and brochures and I remember getting there's two here locally. There's two golf courses, and every year I used to get these letters from the golf courses every single year. Hey, we've got a hole open up. We can have you sponsor the hole. It's only whatever. And then this week I had somebody else, one of the students, send me something that they had a golf course that was coming after them. And I'm like, golfers aren't moving unless there's something else. Larry's been on these calls forever. He used to have a billboard. He said people still talk to him about the billboard, even though he hasn't had it up there for like 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. But you know what? He can't tell me if he got any business from it. Don't spend money without knowing you can get a return from it. I know billboards are more just for presence. I get that. And so would the golf course stuff be. But let's establish you first. What's your niche? What are you going to say? This is what I'm going to, people are going to know me because of this. I hope this is making sense to you, because we don't have a lack of inventory. There's a lot of inventory that top producers have right now that's not in MLS. We don't have a lack of inventory. I do think we probably have a lack of effort, because we're just waiting for that business to come to us. I've kind of had a golden rule with every student that brings something to me. And I'll say, listen, if you're convinced that you're going to try it, then try it, but measure it. And if it doesn't turn a profit, get rid of it. I've said that to every student ever since I've started. Measure it. If you don't turn a profit, get rid of it. Okay. How many of you are doing something other than waiting for the business to come to you, hoping the business is going to come your way? I got news for you. If you hadn't had business come your way in these last 3-4 years, but during COVID, maybe this isn't for you, because they were just dropping out of the sky. And it didn't matter what price you put on it, it sold. What a lot of people didn't realize is there are a lot of people out there right now that still want to sell their homes, but they can't find something. Well, why don't you go help them find something? Why don't you establish the fact that some of these people do want to, they don't need to right now, but they want to sell. And if they could find something to move into, they would sell, and then all of a sudden they'd become a need to sell. Once we found the ranch, we needed to sell ours, so we couldn't overprice it. And we priced it pretty fairly, and it came in quickly. What are you doing? How are you getting your business? Are you waiting for it to come to you? Or are you out there on a regular basis looking for it? We don't have a lack of inventory. The solution is you. You are the solution to the lack of inventory. And as soon as you realize that, you will start getting more listings. Hope this was worth your time. I'm going to turn off the recording and let these guys throw some stuff at me. I'm sure they got some stuff. Anyway, wish you were here. Maybe you will be next time. For now, I'm just going to wish you a great week. Hope you get something signed. I'm going to turn off the recording and let them throw some questions at me. Bye for now.